Hello, I'm back. Welcome to my podcast. I'm filming this intro right before I upload the episode because I asked Instagram which topic of conversation people wanted to hear me talk about, and it is a tie with only one person voting for each option. So it comes right back around to me to decide what I'm sharing with you today. And today, it makes sense for me to share about trusting your emotions and being moved by spirit. I believe it was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday I was driving somewhere. Oh, I was driving to meet somebody for coffee. I was driving to meet somebody for coffee, and when I'm driving, at this point, because I'm just like quite literally on autopilot sometimes, I get into that like flow state in my brain while I'm driving, and I just have like something going on in my inner world as I'm driving. And yesterday morning, I just felt the need to speak on it out loud because I think it's really relevant to what happens when you start on a spiritual journey, for lack of better language that I have right now. I think that we're all on that path always, whether we know it or not. And I think trusting your emotions as you move through that process of authenticating your practice, finding what's true and real in your belief systems, that you go through that process of just like feeling whatever it is. And even if in the back of your mind you might be like, I'm not sure if this is mine or if this is somebody else that I'm feeling, or if I'm being manipulated to feel this way. I speak on that in like a good 7-minute clip that you're about to hear. But I thought it'd be cool and also warm, friendly to give a little intro as to like what brought that message through. I really do think that like these episodes, I hope you can hear me. There's an airplane flying above. I really do think that these messages that come through, that I share with you on this podcast in these like shorter, like 5 to 10, 12-minute long messages, I really do feel like I'm channeling in those moments and just sharing it in a way that feels good, sharing it with context with the intro. And before I get any further along in this, if you're new here, hi. My name is Sam. Welcome to my podcast called Sister Sam. Um, every week, hopefully, that is my intention. Sometimes, life happens, cosmos happens, and I don't make it up here, but that's okay. My intention is for most weeks, I share messages pertaining to the nature of reality, spirituality, faith, belonging, organic truth, recovery, healing, all those things that people are talking about nowadays. But I really do think I have a important perspective to share because I come from an upbringing in very strict Christian, fundamentalist Christian church that I now call a religious cult for many reasons. And I will not be sharing so much in depth about that organization that I was born into. However, I will go into like my story and my experience post expulsion from that community. I think that a lot of people have a lot of experiences to share about leaving Christianity. For me, I was kicked out and I had to figure out what the fuck this all was. My world was shattered and I had to put the pieces back together. And I'm still doing that every day, but I am definitely on the path of like devotion and mastery rather than just like always healing. Like there's healing to be done and I'm here for it. I'm open to it. And at the same time, I'm doing this because I'm sharing all this because I'd be doing it anyway. Like even if I wasn't sharing it, I'd still be doing it. And I really do think that there's something here for anybody who feels attracted to listening to this podcast, the space that I'm co-creating. And that's my little intro about this podcast. This episode is about trusting your emotions, like I said at the beginning, and being moved by spirit. And we can replace the word spirit with God, goddess, universe, creator. And this is like a non-gendered thing, non-gendered oneness. Higher power, whatever you want, whatever word you want to use, that is your prerogative. It is up to you. It feels true. Whatever divine speaks to the heart. And with that, I won't talk too much more because honestly, I don't have too much. And if I just keep talking, we're going to get off topic. So I hope you enjoyed this channeled message while I was driving on trusting your emotions post whatever fundamentalist religion conditioning you come from. And in my belief right now, it's that we all come from this one way or another. A lot of us have ancestral ties and cords to fundamentalism of belief. A lot of us have come from Christianity. And I think that there's a unraveling process and a knowing that we get to explore when we start to create our own cosmology, our beliefs, and our own practices in expressing our beliefs and growing deeper and rooting down into the organic truth of who we are. So those are a lot of fancy words, and I hope you're following along. I hope it makes sense to you. And lastly, I hope that you enjoy. I hope that you do you subscribe to a podcast? I guess if you subscribe to a podcast, I hope you subscribe. You can watch this episode on YouTube. You can subscribe there. All the links to my social accounts are there. And lastly, this just dropped into my brain. Lastly, if you enjoy listening to me talk, I will be launching an online mystery school titled STELLUNA. And I am so excited to be sharing more details about that. But if you want to follow along about the launch date, if you're local to where I live, if you know me in real life, I will be having a launch party either late this spring or early this summer to celebrate this. This feels like a culmination of what I've been studying for the last 4 years and honestly practicing devotion for my entire life. So if that sounds interesting to you, if you don't know what a mystery school is, I could talk about it in a future episode. And this space, this community that I'm creating is for the spiritually curious and inclined artists, creatives, entrepreneurs, healers, visionaries. If you identify as a witch or a mystic, this space is for you. I will be sharing the tools and techniques, the stories of how I've come to develop my own intuitive gifts and artistic talents in this very whole way, beyond the intellectualization of music theory and technique of whatever your practice is. I'm really excited to be bringing this forth, and it feels so good to be sharing that in this episode. I wasn't planning to share that, but here we are. I felt moved to, and I did. I am launching the digital altar for STELLUNA in the coming months with the launch party. So I'm just building up, anticipation for that space, that community to come very soon. And that is all that I need to say today. So please enjoy this 7-minute channeled message about trusting your emotions and being moved by spirit. Thank you so much. Bye. I remember when I first started exploring spirituality outside of the Christian, strict, heavy, fundamentalist Christian religious upbringing that I was born into and conditioned by. I remember that during that time I was exploring, and I was letting myself be present in new spaces where religion and spirituality was part of the bigger picture, part of the conversation. And something that I'm remembering right now that happened to me, that I experienced while moving through that at such a vulnerable time, was this phenomenon of like being or feeling distrustful of my own emotions, feeling distrustful that like, oh, I'm just being moved, like kind of this belief that whatever I was experiencing emotionally was not naturally mine to experience, that it was somehow fabricated by the people facilitating whatever experience it was. I found myself going to another Christian church for a little while to explore that and to see how that felt. And I was moved the very first time that I went, and then slowly but surely I started to have more questions, kind of like the same questions that I had growing up in the church that I was born into. And I'm speaking on this because I think that when we start to kind of find what feels true, authentic, like capital T true, and not just authentic but like organic to us in terms of a spiritual expression or spiritual practice, I think that we can start to kind of like distrust what we're feeling and experiencing as like, oh, they're manipulating my emotions, they're making me feel this way. Whoever it is, whether that's like the facilitator of the space you're in, or the pastor, the priest, whoever it is that you are receiving some sort of experience with. I just want to speak on that because I think everybody needs to go through that sort of like distrust of like, oh, I'm being made to feel this way, as a way of discerning the difference between being emotionally manipulated by an environment, situation, a practitioner, facilitator, priest, pastor, whoever, discerning the difference between being emotionally manipulated and truly deeply moved and unraveled emotionally by an experience. I think that there's some fear in feeling moved by spirit, because especially if you come from a heavily religious or strict belief system, strict conditioning, whatever that may look like in terms of like your belief in spirituality, your faith. I think I'm kind of losing it now. But I think that it's important that we recognize if we're experiencing like a distrust of our own emotions, and if it's coming from a place of fear, or are we just genuinely being moved by something. And if we are being genuinely moved by spirit, I hope that you can find the courage to let yourself feel that and move through that. Cry, be angry, let yourself be transformed. That sound came on the radio and it made me look at the clock and it said 3:33. So I just want to speak on that because I think that when we start to explore these spiritual spaces, we begin to find capital T truth for ourselves in terms of spiritual expression and practice and faith, that it can feel scary because maybe we're still trying to understand what's real, what our relationship to spirit actually feels like versus what we're told it should look like and feel like and be like. And eventually you'll understand the difference. when you feel moved by spirit, it feels liberating. It feels good. Though you're moving through something like grief, there is a big, big, big sigh of relief at the end of it. Versus emotional manipulation, where you are back to sort of a mind game, a loop, a thought pattern of like, okay, I feel this way, how do I fix it? What do I do with this? Like a more like intellectualization. You're kind of more like stuck in the brain, in the thought patterns, in the thought forms, in the loops up here, rather than more open and clear and spacious. I think that we can tell the difference when we start to take note of how emotions, not how emotions, but where feeling brings us. Yeah. And I'll leave you with that. And I'll leave you with that to sit with and to receive and integrate however that feels best for you. But know that it's okay to be moved. It's okay to feel whatever is present, whatever is bubbling up for you. That letting yourself be moved spiritually is safe and it is okay. And that you know when you're being manipulated, and you just know. Trust yourself. Don't look for the answer somewhere else. Let yourself be moved and inquire with the deepest, truest, most pure and organic parts of yourself, and you'll be okay.